They grabbed me by the arm and dragged me out of the VIP lounge like a thief, because they thought I was just the black maid. What they did not know, I owned the entire hotel. He grabbed me by the arm rough, careless, as if I were nothing but trash left behind in the VIP lounge. Another one, bigger, meaner, blocked the exit as if I was some kind of threat to national security. "Madam," the first one growled, "this area is for paying guests only. You do not belong here." He did not even look at my face, just saw the brown skin, the janitor's uniform, the scuffed sneakers, and decided, she does not deserve this leather seat, this glass of sparkling water, this quiet space. The woman behind the front desk, pencil thin and all lips, just stood there, clutching a clipboard like it was the Constitution itself. Her blazer screamed management, but her eyes whispered one thing: get her out. I could see the pride flickering behind those narrowed lids, as if watching me get dragged out validated her whole purpose in life. They did not ask for my name. They did not ask why I was there. They just acted. Because to them, I was invisible, disposable, another black maid who dared step out of line. But they did not know who I was. I am Amanda Lewis, 48 years old, African American, born and raised in the heart of Atlanta, Georgia. I do not do conflict. Never liked it. I was the type who kept her head down, clocked in on time, and worked twice as hard for half the recognition. I swept floors. I scrubbed toilets. I changed the sheets after honeymooners. But I also read finance books on my lunch breaks and took business classes at night. I climbed not by stepping on others, but by lifting myself up one rung at a time. And now I own this hotel. But let us rewind, because before I stood at the top, I had to sit silently at the bottom, and today, they reminded me exactly how easy it is for get your worth the moment you look. You do not belong. The VIP lounge was empty. Well, almost. A few suits chatted near the bar, too distracted by their overpriced cocktails to notice anything. I had come in just after my routine walkthrough of the service elevators. I was tired. My feet ached. I wanted 5 minutes to breathe. I sat down quietly in the far corner, behind one of the heavy potted plants that no one ever waters. Just me, a glass of cucumber water, and a brief moment of peace before heading back into the storm of invoices and her issues upstairs. Then the radio chirped. Got an unknown in the lounge. She is not on the list. That was the first sign. Then the footsteps. Heavy, fast, determined. And then I was removed like a weed from manicured grass. No questions. Just assumption. Just power, thrown around like it was free. I could feel every eye in that lobby as they hauled me through. Some stared in shock, others in satisfaction, but none spoke up. Not even her. Her name was Kimberly, Assistant Operations Manager. Mid-30s. Sharp jawline. Heels too high for comfort. Voice always 2 decibels too condescending. We had crossed paths once when I walked into her morning meeting, by accident, looking for a mop closet. She never forgot it, from that day on. She watched me with the same suspicion she would give to a cockroach near her purse. She did not recognize me in that moment, or maybe she did and just did not care. After all, what kind of black woman in scrubs owned a hotel? I did not resist. That is not my way. I let them do what they felt they had the right to do. Let them act like they had power over me. Because, sometimes, silence is the loudest strategy. They dumped me outside the VIP lounge like dirty linen. I adjusted my name tag crooked on purpose, a disguise I wore whenever I walked the halls for unscheduled staff inspections. I glanced at Travis' security chief, smug, square-jawed, and utterly oblivious to what he would just done. His voice echoed down the corridor. "Next time, stick to your floor. Sweetheart." Sweetheart. That word boiled something inside me. But still, I said nothing. I walked past the reception, past the grand staircase, into the gold-trimmed elevator that required a special keycard to access the top floor. And as the elevator doors closed behind me, something in me shifted. They thought they would shamed me, humiliated me. What they would really done was awaken me. Because there comes a point where enough is enough, when dignity demands more than silence. When you stop playing along with the role they assigned you. I had built this empire from crumbs, from tips left on nightstands and forgotten coins in laundry machines. I owned the deed. The elevators, the floors, the chandeliers hanging above their heads. And now they would see what happens when the woman they thought was invisible steps fully into the light. But I was not ready to shout yet. Not today, no. First, I would watch. I would listen. And then, I would dismantle every piece of their arrogance, with receipts and records and board votes. They dragged me like a thief, but the truth. I came here to collect what already belonged to me. And trust me, by the end of this, everyone in this hotel would remember my name. Amanda Lewis. The maid who owned everything. My name is Amanda Lewis. I was born in a one-bedroom apartment in southwest Atlanta with no heating in the winter and no air in the summer. My mother used to say, "Baby, we do not have much, but we have got dignity. Never let nobody take that from you." I carried that lesson through every mop stroke, every overnight shift, and every fake smile I had to wear in the face of entitled guests who could not be bothered to say thank you. I never wanted a fight. I wanted peace. But peace does not come easy when the world sees you as less. My mother cleaned homes for the rich while raising 3 children on her own. She used to pack me a peanut butter sandwich and bring me with her when she could not afford a babysitter. I watched her scrub baseboards in silence while white women gossiped on the phone, never even acknowledging her presence. I learned early how invisibility works, how it is not just being overlooked, it is being erased. I promised myself I would never live like that. At 16, I got my first job as a busser in a downtown diner. The manager, a white man with a permanent sneer, made me clean gum off the bottom of tables and still docked my pay for poor attitude. I did not complain. I just kept showing up, working, saving, learning. I was 24 when I got hired at the Sycamore Grand Hotel as a housekeeper. My uniform was too big, the gloves too thin, and the rooms too many. I remember the first time I entered that gold-lined lobby and stared at the chandeliers like they were stars. I dreamed of one day staying in one of those suites, not cleaning them. But the years passed, and I stayed behind the curtains until I did not. I enrolled in night classes at a community college. accounting, management, real estate. I took out loans, worked double shifts, and kept my mouth shut every time a manager took credit for my ideas. It took 17 years, 2 mortgages, and a lifetime of silence, but eventually, I acquired the very building where no one ever held the door open for me, the Sycamore Grand Hotel. I bought it in a quiet deal through a shell company. I did not need applause or headlines. I wanted freedom, power that could not be denied. I stayed behind the scenes, letting the old management stay in place, letting people believe what they wanted, that I was just another face in the crowd. That was my mistake, because silence does not protect you. It only delays the moment when someone tries to remind you that you do not belong. And that moment came yesterday. Travis Willard, head of security, mid-30s, former cop who got let go for disciplinary issues that no one liked to talk about. Broad shoulders, shaved head, always chewing gum like he had something to prove. He walks like he owns the place, even though I do. He never respected me, not when I introduced myself as Amanda from Quality Control, not when I asked about camera blind spots or suggested staff training for bias. He just smirked and nodded, the way men do when they are pretending to listen, but can hide their contempt. And then there is Kimberly Langston. She might have been worse. Blonde hair in a tight bun, navy power suits, and heels sharp enough to kill with. She called herself the face of guest relations. But really she was just another gatekeeper, one who made sure the VIP lounge stayed free of unsavory elements. Like me. Apparently. I watched her that day as she stood behind Travis while he dragged me, her jaw clenched, her eyes scanning the other guests, not for truth, but for approval. And she got it. Because no one stopped them. No one asked questions. No one wondered why a woman in a clean uniform and name tag was being thrown out like she would committed a crime. They all just assumed. And that was the moment I understood something I had not let myself face before. They will always see me as the help until I make them see otherwise. So I went home. I peeled off my uniform, sat on the edge of my bed, and stared at the wall for a long time. Part of me still wanted to believe it was not worth it, that I should just fire Travis quietly, retrain the staff, move on. But something inside me cracked, not out of anger, out of love. Love for the girl I used to be, for my mother, for every black woman who ever got told not in here, not for you. Wait outside, for every staff member who walks on eggshells while the guests throw tantrums and the managers stay silent. That night, I did not sleep. Instead, I went to the hotel security office. No one noticed as I keyed in the override code, only I had it. I accessed the surveillance logs, pulled the footage, downloaded every second of my removal, every shot of Travis yanking me like I was a criminal, every smirk from Kimberly, every bystander turning their back. Then I logged into my private email account. I sent 3 messages. One to my attorney, one to the board, and one to a local journalist I knew from my early years, a woman who once interviewed me anonymously for a piece on hidden hotel labor. The subject line: "This is what power looks like when it is misused." And as I hit send, I smiled not out of revenge, but out of justice. They had treated me like a maid with no voice. But they forgot. The maid owns the building, and I was done cleaning up after everyone else's mess. His name is Travis Willard, age 35, white, 6'3", shoulders like stone, and a badge that he wore like a crown. But make no mistake, he was not law enforcement anymore. Not after that incident 2 years ago when he shoved black teen against a patrol car over a skateboard and got administratively dismissed from the force. No official charges, just a quiet exit, a sealed file, and a new job at my hotel where he brought the same rage and entitlement with him through the front doors. Travis liked to think of himself as the last line of order in a world falling apart. The kind of man who measures respect by obedience, especially when it comes from someone who does not look like him, especially someone black, especially someone female. He did not know who I was. He never asked, because to Travis, a black woman in a janitor uniform was just background noise. Less than that, an inconvenience. But to understand him, you have to understand what kind of people get power and what they do with it when no one watches. Travis patrolled the halls like a warden, always watching the cameras, always commenting on which employees were too slow, too chatty, too lazy. I knew exactly what he meant when he used those words. So did the staff, the black ones, the Latino ones, the immigrants, everyone with an accent, a darker shade, a second job to survive. He would report them for being 5 minutes late, but let a white intern from college spill wine in the hallway, and it was boys will be boys. I let it slide too long. That is on me. I thought I could change things from the top. Quietly, by shifting policy, by holding her accountable, by giving more hours to the ones who were overlooked. But racism does not vanish with memos. It thrives in silence. And silence was what I gave it. Until yesterday, when Travis grabbed me, manhandled me like I was trying to steal something instead of just sitting quietly in a lounge I legally owned. Something inside me lit fire. But that was not the part that hurt most. The part that cracked me open was her. Kimberly Langston. She was 36, maybe 37, hired as the face of hospitality to attract high-profile guests. Tall, blonde, polished to perfection. She had that friendly on the surface, ice underneath persona that corporate America worships. She smiled with her mouth, not her eyes. Kimberly and I had met formally once. I introduced myself as Amanda from the quality control team. She shook my hand, but looked over my shoulder the entire time, like something more important might walk in behind me. She never once asked me where I was from, what I did before this, what I thought. To her, I was invisible. Yesterday, as Travis dragged me from that lounge, she stood there, arms folded, mouth tight, clipboard hugged to her chest like a shield. She did not say a word, not stop, not let me check her badge, not even, "Are you okay?" I was not surprised, because in the eyes of people like her, you are only human if you have a last name on the building or wear a suit that costs more than your rent. But the irony. My name is on the building. It was just tucked away in documents she never bothered to read. I stood there in the hallway, watching her turn away from the scene she allowed. I memorized the way she smiled politely at a white couple walking by, how easily she moved on while I stood humiliated behind her. And that is when I realized this was not just about Travis. It was about all of them. The quiet bystanders, the polite racists, The ones who did not shout but sanctioned every injustice with a nod, a shrug, or a silence so thick it could suffocate. But I was done being quiet. Later that evening, I sat in my office. Lights low, documents spread across my desk. Ownership papers. Surveillance, access. Our complaints that mysteriously went missing when lower-level employees tried to speak up. I had everything I needed. I called my lawyer. "Do it," I said. "File the internal complaint. Notify the board. And yes, I want the footage released." She paused. "You want this public?" I nodded. Let them see how their hotel treats its owner. And just like that, the wheels turned. The board scheduled an emergency meeting for Monday. The press already had the footage, prepped to release it if I gave the word. But first, I needed one more thing. I needed to see Travis face to face. So I waited. I knew his schedule. Every Sunday. He did a morning walkthrough before most staff even clocked in. I showed up early, dressed not in uniform, but in a dark gray pantsuit, tailored and quiet. The kind that whispers wealth instead of shouting it. My heels clicked on the marble floor as I entered the lobby. Travis stood by the front desk, coffee in hand, bragging to the receptionist about how he handled a situation in the lounge. He used that word "handled" like I was an animal. When he saw me, his expression flickered. He did not recognize me, not right away. So I smiled. "Morning, Ma." "Willard, we need to talk." He narrowed his eyes. "And you are." I stepped closer, placed a file on the desk in front of him. "My name is Amanda Lewis, owner of the Sycamore Grand Hotel." He blinked, scoffed, laughed like I was telling a joke. Then he opened the file. Inside, my name on the title deed, copies of transfer documents, my executive board ID, and a still frame from the surveillance footage of him, gripping my arm like a man arresting a criminal. The smile vanished. And for the first time since he stepped foot into my building, Travis Willard went silent. He had no idea who I was. But now, he would never forget. The hotel lights were always brightest. In the lobby, polished marble floors, gold-accented archways, the chandelier that sparkled like frozen rain above the concierge desk. But when I walked through those same doors this morning, something about the air felt different, like it knew a reckoning was coming, like it was holding its breath. Travis had not shown up for his shift. Kimberly was in early. Though she always was. Her navy suit was sharp, her bun tighter than ever, her heels clacking against the floor like little gunshots of control. She was on her tablet, scrolling through staff logs, pretending the world had not just tilted beneath her. She did not see me at first, not until I stood directly in front of her. As "Langston," I said softly, calm, measured, but unmistakable. Her eyes lifted, and for a moment, confusion swam across her pupils like storm clouds gathering. Then recognition. Then dread. "Amanda, I did not know you were the owner." I finished. "Yes, I know." She straightened, lips pursing into the kind of corporate smile you only see in her seminars. "Of course. I just did not realize you would be on site today." Is there something I can help you with? I wanted to laugh. Instead, I handed her a printed notice. Mandatory executive review hearing Security incident on premises. You and Willard are both required to attend. I said, the board would like your statements on record. Her hand trembled slightly as she took it. Not much, but enough. I turned and walked away past the same concierge desk, where, just days ago, no one bothered to look up as I was dragged from the VIP lounge, past the same guests who now whispered behind cappuccino cups, scrolling through their phones as footage of the hotel Maid CEO began to circulate online. They were watching now, but where were they when I needed just one voice? That is the part that stays with you, not just the injustice, but the silence that followed it. The way people avert their eyes to keep from seeing the truth standing right in front of them. I was not angry at just Travis or Kimberly. I was angry at the system, the invisible scaffolding that kept people like me in the basement. No matter how high we climbed, I thought back to all the times I would walk these halls in my uniform. The way guests shoved dirty towels into my hands without looking me in the eye. The way other staff whiter, younger, louder got promoted over me despite doing half the work. The way I was only seen when something went wrong. One night, years ago, I had found a woman crying in one of the empty banquet rooms. She was a dishwasher barely 20, and she had been harassed by a male supervisor all week. She begged me not to say anything, terrified she would lose her job. So I sat with her for 2 hours. Just sat. Just listened. The next day, she was gone. Didn't he show up? They said. But I remembered her name. And I remembered the way her eyes looked. Not sad. Defeated. I made a promise to myself that day. If I ever got the power, I would use it to make sure no one else felt like that. But I had forgotten that promise. I got caught up in being silent. Polished. Invisible. Because I thought that was the cost of being accepted. But now the cost was too high, because in this place, I was still just the help. Despite the title on my deed, despite the suit on my back, despite the fact that every light in this building was powered by a bill with my name on it, I was done playing small. By noon, the hotel buzzed with the kind of rumors that only truth could set off. The footage had been leaked. A whisper turned into a headline. A tweet turned into a firestorm. Black Maid dragged from lounge, turns out she is the hotel's owner. That was the caption on the news crawl under my face. Guests gathered in small huddles, pretending not to gawk. Staff murmured behind closed doors. Some avoided me. Others gave quick, guilty glances like children caught cheating. But the one who surprised me most was Maria. She had been on cleaning crew for 10 years. Barely spoke above a whisper. Immigrant, mother of 4. That day, as I passed her near the storage closets on floor 2, she really looked at me and said, "Thank you, as Louis, for showing them." Her voice cracked on the word them. I reached for her hand and squeezed it gently. "I am showing us, Maria," I said. "I am showing us." Because this was not just about me anymore. It never was. Later that evening, I sat at the long mahogany table in the executive boardroom, the same table where decisions about budgets, staff reductions, and guest privileges were made. This time, I sat at the head. Travis arrived late. His shirt was wrinkled. He had not shaved. His eyes darted like a man caught between denial and panic. Kimberly sat rigid beside him, her tablet untouched for once. The board members were already seated, 3 men, 2 women, all white, all quiet. Their silence now meant something different. I placed the footage on the projector. Let it play. Let them see. Travis fidgeted. Kimberly looked down. No one spoke until the final second faded. Then I leaned forward. I do not want excuses, I said. I want accountability. For the first time in the history of that boardroom, the silence belonged to them. The boardroom was still. So still, you could hear the ticking of the antique brass clock above the door. The air did not move. The blinds stayed half closed, streaks of sunlight slashing through them like silent judgment. And there I sat, no longer the invisible maid, no longer the woman they passed by in elevators without so much as a nod, but Amanda Lewis, owner of the Sycamore Grand Hotel. Across from me sat Travis Willard, looking like a crumpled statue. He was not chewing gum today. His jaw clenched instead, ticking like that clock on the wall. Kimberly Langston sat next to him, hands clasped so tightly her knuckles were pale. For once, the gloss on her lips did not shine. I had handed them the price of their assumptions, and now I waited to see if they would pay it. I assume. I began, voice calm but clear. Everyone has reviewed the footage. One of the board members, a silver-haired man named Stephen Monroe, who once questioned why we had so many Spanish-speaking housekeepers, cleared his throat. We saw it. Yes. I turned to Travis. Willard, would you like to explain your conduct that day? He shifted, tried to stand his ground. I was doing my job. I received a report that a staff member was sitting in the VIP lounge unauthorized. I followed protocol. I stared at him, unblinking. You followed protocol by grabbing a woman by the arm and dragging her through a lobby in front of guests without asking her name, checking credentials, or radioing to confirm her access level. Silence. He opened his mouth, but nothing came out. Not even a lie strong enough to stand on. Kimberly finally spoke. I did radio in, but it was chaotic. The lounge was filling up. We did not want to cause a scene. A scene. I repeated. You did not want to cause a scene, so you dragged me across the floor like a criminal. She shrank into her seat. The poise drained from her. This was not about protocol, I said slowly. It was about perception, about who you think belongs and who does not. And I am telling you now, this hotel is not going to be run by fear or prejudice or power drunk on assumption. A beat passed. Then I turned to the rest of the board. Effective immediately, I am exercising my ownership authority to terminate Travis Willard from his position as head of security. All benefits suspended pending investigation. And Ms. Kimberly Langston, you are placed on administrative leave until further review. Travis' chair scraped against the floor as he jumped up. You can do this. I did not flinch. I just did. He looked around the room, searching for allies, for someone to stand up, for someone to speak on his behalf. No one did. Even Stephen Monroe avoided his eyes. Kimberly stood slowly. "Amanda, please, let us be reasonable." I was reasonable, I replied, when I allowed this hotel to function with dignity and discretion. When I allowed people like you to continue in your roles, hoping merit would correct behavior. But that clearly did not work. So now I am being decisive. Security arrived moments later. Irony painted the room as Travis, red-faced, was escorted out the very way he had dragged me just days ago. Not a soul said a word. Outside the boardroom, I walked the halls. The atmosphere had changed. Staff who used to avoid my gaze now nodded with cautious respect. Some smiled. Maria from cleaning left a note outside my office. "We see you now." Thank you. That one line struck deeper than all the headlines. The press was already rolling. The leaked footage had gone viral. I would become, overnight, the story they all wanted to tell. Black Maid turns hotel mogul, exposes systemic bias. My inbox overflowed. Offers, endorsements, interviews. But that was not what mattered. What mattered was what happened that evening. I stayed late, walking the empty halls, the same halls I used to mop, the same carpet where I would once picked up crumbs behind cocktail waiters. I passed the employee break room, now cleaned, stocked, newly painted under a renovation. I pushed for that no one noticed. And then I heard soft footsteps. A young man, maybe 19, stood outside the staff entrance. Uniform wrinkled, eyes wide. His name tag read Divan. He was new. I would seen him once on his first day. Too scared to look up from his mop bucket. He looked at me now like I was on a billboard. As "Louis?" he asked. I nodded. Yes. He hesitated. Then, I just wanted to say, I thought about quitting last week. Thought I was not cut out for this. But seeing what you did, I think I will stay. I swallowed the lump in my throat. Then I will make sure this place is worth staying for. Because real change is not just firing the loudest offenders. It is rebuilding the culture that let them thrive. It is showing the quiet ones they are not alone. As I turned to leave, Divan called after me. You really own this whole place. I smiled. No. Divan, I said, we do now. The news hit the lobby like a lightning bolt. By the next morning, every single employee, from bellhop to barista, had heard some version of it. Some said I was married to the owner. Others claimed I won the hotel in a lawsuit. But the truth, the real truth, was printed in black ink on the front page of the Atlanta Tribune. From maid to mogul, black woman silently owns luxury hotel that dismissed her as staff. They put my picture next to the article. Not the Amanda in a janitor's uniform. No, the Amanda in a gray silk blouse, power slacks, and a silver necklace shaped like the state of Georgia. My smile was not wide, it was calm. Resolved, a quiet triumph. And when the guests checked in that day and saw me standing at the front of the hotel, not with a mop, but with a purpose, they started whispering. Is that? She is the one from the news, right? I thought she was just a cleaner. No one said it to my face. They never do, but their eyes could not hide it. Confusion, admiration, and shame. But the real moment did not come from the guests. It came from the staff. A group of housekeepers, all women of color, stood together outside the service elevator. Their eyes met mine as I passed. None of them said a word until an older woman named Juen, who worked here for over 20 years, stepped forward. She held something in her hand. It was an old, faded photo of me from 15 years ago, hair tied up, sweat on my brow, standing in the break room beside her. She would kept it in her locker all these years. "You did it," she whispered. I looked at her, at all of them. "No," I said. "We did." That afternoon, I called a full staff meeting in the main banquet hall. Most had never even seen the inside of that room. It was where we held galas, fundraisers, dinners for celebrities and senators. But today, it was for us. I stood at the front of the room and took the mic. "I know many of you are confused." I began. "Some of you may be even angry. You have worked here for years and never knew who owned this place. You never saw my name on a wall or a plaque. And maybe that was my mistake. I thought staying behind the curtain would protect me, and you." A ripple moved through the crowd. They were listening. But then I realized something. Silence does not change the rules. It just helps them stay the same. And I am done being silent. Murmurs turned to nods. I was dragged through this hotel like a criminal, and not one person stopped to ask who I was, because in their eyes, I did not matter, because of how I looked, because of my uniform, because of my skin. I paused, let it settle. But I am here to tell you I do matter, and so do all of you, every single one. Applause, real, from the gut. I continued. Starting today, this hotel will change. No more whispering behind backs. No more favoritism. No more fear. We are building a new code of respect, not just for guests, but for you. For the people who make this place run. The back door opened. Board members slipped in. Stunned. Kimberly was there, to her posture stiff, her lips bloodless. I turned to face her, and to those who think a title or a tailored suit gives you power over others, let this be your lesson. This hotel does not belong to gatekeepers. It belongs to those who build it. And from this moment forward, that is who I answer to. The staff stood, one by one, clapping, some crying. Kimberly lowered her eyes. I turned back to the mic. Voice softening. I came to this hotel as a maid. I leave this stage as your partner, your advocate, your employer, but most importantly, your sister in the fight to be seen. Thunderous applause erupted. People stomped, whistled. Gwen ran up and hugged me tight. A cook named Germain wiped tears from his cheeks. Even the shyest of the dishwashers, Marisol, whispered, "Gracias." The energy in the room was electric, no longer fear, no longer quiet desperation, but hope. The local news was outside the hotel by the time we walked out. Reporters tried to push mics in my face. I paused, turned to the camera, and simply said, "To every person who has ever been told you do not belong here, I belong, and so do you." That night, I sat alone in the rooftop suite, the one I had once cleaned after guests left lipstick, stained wine glasses, and wrinkled $100 bills as tips. Now, it was mine. The Atlanta skyline shimmered in the window. My mother's picture sat on the table beside me. "I did it, Mama," I whispered. I finally came home, and I knew this was not the end. It was only the beginning. The boardroom felt colder that morning. Not because of the air conditioning, it was the energy. The weight, the shift in power. For the first time, I was not the one walking in with my head low. I was not adjusting my uniform, second-guessing my right to be there. This time, it was them who were uncomfortable. Travis was already seated when I arrived. He looked different. No blazer, no radio, no security badge clipped to his belt. Just a man in a wrinkled shirt and a bruised ego, gripping a pen like it could still offer him control. Kimberly sat across from him, her perfect bun a little looser, her eyes not as sharp. Her laptop was open, but the screen had not changed in 15 minutes. I took my seat at the head of the table. No theatrics. Just presence. The same woman they dragged through the marble lobby. The same woman they dismissed. The same woman who owned the building beneath their feet. The Her officer cleared her throat and said, "This hearing is to formally address the misconduct incident involving Mar, Travis Willard and Ms. Amanda Lewis on hotel grounds." I did not wait for her to finish. "Ma. Willard," I said, eyes locked on him. "Let us not dance. I would like you to repeat, to my face, the words you said to me that day." His jaw clenched. No. I interrupted. "Say it." He shifted in his seat, color rising in his neck. I said, "This area is for paying guests only." I leaned forward. And then, silence. "Tell me what you called me. Tell me what you assumed." His eyes flicked to the Her officer, then to Kimberly, then down to the table. "You said I did not belong." I continued, my voice steady. "You grabbed my arm. You did not ask questions. You did not verify my id. You did not stop to consider who I was, only what I looked like. I thought you were staff." He mumbled, and if I was, I shot back. "Would that make it okay to treat me like a trespasser, like a thief?" He did not answer. I stood, walked slowly to the projection screen on the wall, and clicked a button. The same footage played again. The moment he grabbed me, the moment I stumbled, the moment Kimberly turned away. It hurt to watch, but this time, I owned the moment. "You did not just humiliate me," I said softly. "You humiliated every person who has ever walked into a place like this and been told, silently or loudly, that they are not enough, that they do not belong, that they should disappear." Kimberly stood suddenly, her voice trembling. "Amanda, I am so sorry. I truly did not know. If you had known I was the owner," I cut in, "you would have stopped him." She hesitated. "So you admit," I said slowly, "that you would have treated me differently had you known my status. Not because it was right, but because I had power." Her voice cracked. "Yes." It was the first honest thing she would said in years. The Her officer took notes silently. The board observed like statues. But I was not speaking for them anymore. I turned back to Travis. "You do not work here anymore. That much is done. But I want you to leave today knowing something. It was never your job to decide who belonged and who did not. It was your job to protect, and the only person who was unsafe that day was me. His shoulders dropped. He nodded. For once, no anger, just defeat. As he left the room, he did not look back. Kimberly followed. Quieter. Maybe she would change. Maybe not. But I had changed. Later that day, I hosted a staff-only town hall in the lounge. Yes, that lounge. No uniforms. No namatags. Just people. I stood in front of the maids, kitchen staff, bellboys, mechanics, receptionists, and I said what I wished someone had told me when I first started. You are not invisible. Not here. Not anymore. A hand rose from the back. A young black woman named Candace, fresh from community college. As Louis, she asked, "How did you stay so calm?" I would be snapped. "I do not know how you did not." I smiled, because they expected me to snap. I said, "They wanted me to scream, to cry, to break." But power does not always come from yelling. Sometimes it comes from standing still and letting the truth be louder than anything they can shout. The room was silent. Then applause broke. A rhythm of something real. Something blooming. A new culture was being born. That evening, I walked the halls alone. Staff nodded as I passed, not in fear but in recognition. And as I passed the mirror by the elevator, I saw myself. Not Amanda the maid, not Amanda the boss, but Amanda the mirror for every forgotten person who just needed someone to reflect their worth back to them. This was never about vengeance. This was about visibility. The banquet hall was full again. But this time there were no champagne towers, no tuxedoed guests, no piano music drifting from the corner, no curated smiles for wealthy donors, no velvet ropes separating them from us. Just staff, dozens of them, some in sneakers, some in nursing old shoes with soles peeled back. People who kept the hotel running while being told to stay invisible. And at the center of them all, I stood. Amanda Lewis, black, 48, born to a house cleaner, raised by strength, once a maid, now a mogul. I looked out at them, not just employees, but reflections of the girl I once was. I know what it feels like to eat your lunch in a storage closet so no one accuses you of loitering. I began. I know what it is like to clock in 5 minutes early and still feel late. To be called sweetheart, girl, or nothing at all. Heads nodded. Hands fidgeted in laps. I used to be one of you, I said. And I never stopped being one of you. I paused, holding the weight of that moment. This is not just a hotel to me. It is a place where people break their backs for tips that do not even cover groceries. It is where dreams are folded into bedsheets and rinsed down drains. And I have stayed silent too long. My voice cracked, but I did not let it fall. I thought if I owned this place quietly, if I just changed things from the shadows, I could protect you, that I could protect myself. But silence does not protect the ones it is supposed to. It only emboldens the ones who abuse their power. The room was silent. Then, slowly, A hand went up. It was Louis, a dishwasher from the basement kitchen, soft-spoken and quick to smile. As Louis, he said, voice shaky, "Why did not you tell us before? That you own all this." I stepped forward, because I did not want anyone to treat me differently. I wanted to build a better system, not become another boss they feared. Luz nodded. "But now we are not afraid. We are proud." That did it. The tears came not from pain, but from release. I took a breath. That is why we are changing everything. Not just policy, but purpose. I walked to the whiteboard behind me, revealing a new charter. The Louis Initiative, profit sharing for staff. Every department will now receive monthly bonuses based on the hotel's performance. No more crumbs from the table. Hospitality, scholarships for employees or their children. Fully funded. No essay, just a dream. Bias training for management, not once a year. Every quarter, led by people who've lived through it. Anonymous reporting with protection. Speak up. We will listen. And we will act. No more uniform shaming. Lounge access. Cafeteria quality. Break space, equal across all roles. Applause erupted, the kind that shakes floorboards. Some people were crying, others smiling so hard, like they would been waiting a decade to do so. I scanned the crowd and saw Maria, the cleaner who once left me that note outside my office. Her eyes sparkled. Next to her was Candace, the young intern who nearly quit before learning who I was. And Germain, the cook, now standing tall like he was finally seen. This was the family I chose, not the suits upstairs, not the investors who sent cold quarterly reports. These were my people. As the applause faded, I took the mic one last time. There are places in this world where being seen costs you your job, your peace, your dignity, but not here. Not anymore. Here, we lift each other. Here, we protect one another. And then I said the words I never thought I would hear myself say. This hotel does not just belong to me. It belongs to us. The crowd stood, a wave of standing ovation, not out of duty, but out of recognition. They were not clapping for a boss. They were clapping for a survivor, a fighter, a sister. The next morning, I returned to the VIP lounge, alone, the same lounge where I had been dragged like a trespasser. This time, no guards, no whispers, just me in a room filled with light. I sat down in the same chair, smoothed my blazer, poured myself a glass of cucumber water, and just as I brought it to my lips, the door opened. It was a bellhop, young, nervous, as Louis. He said, "They are ready for your press conference." I nodded, then stood, because now the world was watching, and for once I was ready to speak, not just for myself, but for every soul who was ever told to stay quiet and stay small. The stage was simple, no velvet ropes, no oversized flower arrangements. Just a modest podium on the front lawn of the Sycamore Grand Hotel, now flanked by press vans, cameras, and rows of folding chairs. The hotel's logo gleamed on a silk banner overhead. But today, it was not about luxury. It was about legacy. I stood behind the mic, a light wind tugging gently at the hem of my blazer. The sun was shining, but not too harsh, just enough warmth to feel like something new was beginning. Staff filled the front rows. Maria, Germaine, Candace, Luz, Gwen, all of them. Some wore uniforms, some did not. All of them wore the same thing in their eyes. Pride. This hotel, I began, voice steady but intimate, was built by people who were never meant to be seen, by hands that never gripped microphones, by backs that never touched leather office chairs, by voices that were always asked to stay silent. I looked to the crowd. I was one of those people, and maybe you were too. The press clicked. Pens scratched. Phones recorded. But the time for silence is over, I said, because when the woman scrubbing the floor owns the roof above your head, it means the rules have changed. Applause rose from the staff, real and powerful. Even some reporters stood, clapping. I remember sitting in that VIP lounge. I continued, just days ago. Exhausted, needing a break, and I was dragged out like a thief, not because I did something wrong, but because I did not look like I belonged. A pause. But what they did not know is that I built that lounge. A pause heavier than the last. So today, I am announcing that the VIP lounge at the Sycamore Grand will no longer be a place that excludes, it will be a place that includes. Effective immediately. Staff who meet performance goals will have full access, uniform or not, because respect is not reserved for suits, it is earned by service. The reaction was electric. Germaine clapped until his palms turned red. Gwen covered her mouth. Maria wept quietly. Then I turned to the board seated behind me. I am also launching the Lewisity Fund, a trust made from 10% of hotel profits dedicated to healthcare, education, and housing support for our lowest paid employees, because loyalty should be repaid in more than a paycheck. A gasp rippled through the media row. Cameras zoomed in. Questions tried to break the quiet, but I raised a hand. One more thing, I said. Voice softening. I want to thank the people who did stand silently by. Not because I condone it, but because I understand it. Fear is real, but courage does not have to be loud. It starts with one act. One word, one choice to say, this is not right. I stepped back from the mic, and the applause roared. Later that afternoon, back inside the hotel, I walked through the VIP lounge again, but this time it was full of people who once feared it, housekeepers drinking iced tea, a doorman smiling as he leaned back into a plush chair, two kitchen staff whispering excitedly over a plate of croissants. No one glared. No one asked questions. No one dared to say they did not belong. I approached the front counter. The new lounge attendant, a young black woman named Shanice, stood tall. "Can I help you, madam?" she asked. I smiled. "No." "Shanice, I am just looking." I watched a buzzboy barely 20 grab a sparkling water and laugh with an accountant. They would likely never spoken outside this room. And yet, here they were, human, equal. That night, I walked the hallways again, This time not as a stranger, not as a shadow, as Amanda Lewis, founder of a new kind of hospitality, one rooted in humility, in justice, in truth. Near the entrance, I saw a small girl, maybe 7 or 8, walking beside her mother, a housekeeping supervisor. She pointed at the portrait on the wall. "Mom," she said, tugging her sleeve, "is that the lady who used to clean rooms?" Her mother smiled. "Yes, baby. That is the lady who owns it now." The little girl looked at the portrait again, then whispered something I will never forget. "Then maybe I can too." And in that moment, everything I had endured, the humiliation, the silence, the assumptions, it all felt worth it, because the lounge was not the real prize. Legacy was. Morning light flooded the marble floors of the Sycamore Grand Hotel. Outside, the doorman held the door open, not for a celebrity, not for a VIP, but for Marisol, the dishwasher, on her way to the newly opened Staff Wellness Center, her 2-year-old daughter toddling beside her, laughing in the sunlight. Inside, the once rigid lobby pulsed with something new. Freedom. Gone were the stiff shoulders of underpaid staff tiptoeing around power. In their place stood men and women upright, speaking, laughing, living in a space that no longer made them feel less than. I stood at the mezzanine railing, watching the heartbeat I helped restart. Below me was life and dignity. I had not spoken to the press in 3 days. I did not need to. The world had taken my story and run with it. Maid turned mogul overhauls industry standard. Hotel CEO restructures power from bottom up. But none of it mattered more than what happened yesterday. A letter left outside my door, in Travis' handwriting. It did not beg. It did not defend. It read only, "I never saw you. That is the truth. I saw a woman I thought I could control, a uniform I could dismiss, a color I could step over. I have lost more than a job. I have lost the illusion that I ever had real power. I see now. I hope one day you will believe I mean that." I folded it slowly, and I forgave him, because forgiveness is power, too. Because if I stayed angry, I would never be free. I turned to the final change I had waited for the right moment to make. Hanging on the central lobby wall was a new plaque. Where once there'd been a generic corporate mission statement, there now reads something truer. The Sycamore Grand Hotel was built on the backs of the unseen. Today, it stands on their shoulders, with pride, and beneath it, founder and owner Amanda Lewis, former housekeeper, forever human. I walked toward the elevator, pressed the button to the staff level. When the doors opened, I stepped out and was greeted not by bowing heads, but by high fives, smiles, life. There was a bulletin board with names of staff recognized by peers, not managers. A food pantry stocked for struggling employees. A note from Candace pinned beside it. She made us visible. I walked the halls that had once consumed my youth. Back then, I scrubbed the baseboards on my knees. Today, I touched the walls gently as I passed. A silent thank you to the girl who never gave up. On the rooftop, I stood alone in the cool air. Atlanta shimmered in the distance. A soft voice behind me, as "Lewis." I turned. It was Devon, the new bellhop, holding a guest log and trying not to look nervous. "Yeah, Devon. There is A school group downstairs. Public school kids. They are doing a tour for Career Week. The guide wants to know if you would speak to them for a minute. I smiled. Tell them I will be right there. As I descended the stairs, I heard the chatter of children echo through the lobby. A teacher tried to quiet them. Some had already spotted me. "That is her," one boy shouted. "She owns the whole hotel." Another girl, with thick glasses and tight braids, clutched a notebook to her chest like it was a shield, her eyes locked on mine. I walked over and knelt so I was eye level with her. "Hey there," I said. "What is your name?" "Amani." She whispered, "I want to build something one day, too." "You already are," I said, tapping her chest gently. "Right here." The teacher cleared her throat as, "Louis, would you like to say something to them before we go?" I stood, took a breath. "You see this place?" I asked the children, the shiny floors, the gold elevator, the fancy doors. I used to clean them. I used to think I would never walk through those doors unless someone let me. They were listening now. But then I realized you do not wait for permission to matter. You do not need a title to make change. You just need to know who you are, even when no one else does. One kid clapped. Then two. Then the whole group. As they left, I watched Amani linger at the back. She looked up one last time and waved. "Bye," as, "Louis, bye, baby." I whispered, "Go build your empire." And just like that, they were gone. But something stayed with me, because in that moment, I realized they will tell my story, but they will live it, too. This hotel no longer stood for exclusion. It stood for elevation. And me, I was no longer the maid. I was the blueprint. They called me the Maid. They dragged me across a floor I once polished on my knees. They looked at my skin, my uniform, my silence, and decided I did not belong. But now, my name hangs over the doors they once told me not to touch. The Sycamore Grand Hotel stands, not just as a luxury landmark, but as a living testimony that power can rise from humility, that worth cannot be worn like a suit, and that respect must be rooted in humanity, not hierarchy. I did not buy this hotel for revenge. I rebuilt it for recognition. So no young woman scrubbing a bathroom feels less than human. So no bop is told to stay in his place. So no one is dragged, silenced, or discarded simply because someone assumed they were no one. Because every empire worth remembering starts with someone who refused to stay invisible. Never let the world define your worth by what you wear or where you start. Whether you sweep floors or sit in boardrooms, your dignity is not negotiable. You belong wherever your dreams take you. And sometimes, the most powerful person in the room is the one they tried hardest to ignore. If this story moved you, do not just scroll. Like to show you believe in justice and redemption. Comment and tell us your favorite moment or who inspired you most. Subscribe to hear more stories where the underestimated rise, and the world learns what real strength looks like. Share this story with someone who needs to remember their power, because the woman they tried to erase, she owns the whole damn building now.